Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Inca Girl. This is the 500-year-old preserved body of an Inca girl who was sacrificed as part of a religious ritual. She was discovered with others in 1999 at the summit of a volcano in Argentina. After conducting some tests, scientists concluded that she had been given drugs and alcohol to make her more compliant in the ritual that ultimately killed her. The incredibly cold and dry conditions there helped preserve her very well, making it seem as if she just fell asleep one day and never woke up. Next up at number 9 now, we have Otzi. In 1991, scientists at the Austrian-Italian border found the 5,300-year-old preserved body of a man. He became known as Europe's oldest natural human mummy and has been studied in great detail to learn about how the Copper Age Europeans lived. They deduced that Otzi was about 45 years old when he died. By examining his stomach contents, they even know what he ate for breakfast and lunch on the day he died. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the cows. The remains of Marceline and Francine Demoulin were found preserved in the Swiss Alps. They had been missing for 75 years. The eldest daughter of the couple, who was 86 when her parents were finally discovered, said that her parents went off one night in 1942 to milk their cows and just never came home. Their bodies were discovered in a glacier where a ski lift carried unwitting tourists overhead. Another one of their daughters said the news gave her a deep sense of calm that they had finally been found. Next up at number 7 now, we have Juanita. This is the name of a mummy discovered in the Peruvian mountains in 1995. She is believed to have been a sacrificial offering by Inca priests to the volcano Mount Ampato, where she remained buried in the snow for over 500 years. The eruption of a neighbouring volcano melted the ice that encased her tomb. She is believed to have been about 13 years old at the time of her death. It's thought that the cause of death was a blow to the back of her head, which appears as a skull fracture in X-ray analysis. Moving on to number 6 now, we have John Torrington. He was an explorer who was part of an expedition to find the Northwest Passage. The expedition ran into difficulties and John died of pneumonia. He was buried on the remote beachy island in Canada. His grave and some of the others were discovered in 1976. His body was eventually exhumed in order to discover the cause of death. He was found to be amazingly well preserved due to him being buried in the permafrost. Next up at number 5 now, we have George Mallory. He was an English mountaineer who was part of an expedition to be the first person to climb Mount Everest. They made their attempt in June 1924 but disappeared on the northeast ridge. Their fate remained unknown for 75 years. In 1999, his body was discovered at over 26,000 feet. It was astonishingly well preserved due to the freezing conditions. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the soldiers. In 2004, the ice-preserved bodies of 3 Austrian soldiers killed in World War I were found near the San Matteo mountain in northern Italy. The bodies were discovered at 11,160 feet up, and officials said the bodies were exceptionally well preserved considering they had been there for about 90 years at that point. They were spotted by Maurizio Vincenzi, the director of a museum who was scanning the glacier with binoculars one day when he noticed marks on it. Next up, number 3 now, we have the mystery body. In June 2015, a mummified body was discovered on Pico de Orizaba, Mexico's highest mountain. It was one of a number of corpses that were uncovered as the glacier and ice packs melted there. Unlike the other bodies though, this one wasn't wearing any sort of climbing gear, just ordinary clothes. This sparked a theory that the person may have died when an airplane crashed into the mountain there in the 1990s. And next up, number 2 now, we have the others. I'm putting this one straight after the last one because they were found on the same mountain as well. These ones, however, were thought to be hikers from the 1960s. The mountain there has always been popular with hikers, and these people were thought to have died when an avalanche engulfed them. To be honest, I'm not even sure if our editors are allowed to show you the pictures of their remains. It's pretty grisly, but anyway, there's the story. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Polar Princess, also known as the Siberian Ice Maiden. This is the mummy of a woman who died in the 5th century BC. She was found in 1993 in south central Russia. Her body appeared to be undisturbed thanks to her subterranean burial chamber. She was thought to have been in her 20s when she died, although the cause of death is still unknown. Cannabis found near her tomb seems to suggest that she used that drug to relieve some sort of chronic pain in her life. A reconstruction of her face was created using her skull in conjunction with measurements taken from the skulls and facial features of people who live in that area today.
Starting off dramatic, coming in at number 10, we have the ice finger of death. An underwater phenomenon was caught on camera in Antarctica and dubbed the ice finger of death. Classic Daily Express headline if ever I read one. Footage of the phenomenon was featured on my boy David Attenborough's Frozen Planet documentary series, one of my favourite series out there. It seems a stalactite forms when a pocket of ocean freezes, and when it touches the sea floor, it freezes and kills everything around it, hence its name. It's kind of like slow and dramatic underwater lightning of death. Coming in at number 9, we have the UFO landing spot. or is it? What is this weird pattern here? It seems that two friends came across this weird formation in a frozen lake in Utah. Like honestly, I'm baffled and creeped out and feel a little bit sick. It looks a bit like frog spawn, which is my absolute least favourite thing of all time. Are they alien eggs? It seems that actually they're tiny holes in the ice with something visible underneath, and this really tugs at my trypophobia and makes me feel not good. Not good indeed. I don't like tiny holes. Take them away. Coming in at number 8, we have thousands of fish frozen in time. An entire shoal of fish were found frozen on the coast of a Norwegian island, Luvund, in 2014. Now we're literally talking thousands if not hundreds of thousands of fish here, just frozen. The photographer discovered the group of fish when they were out walking their dog. Now you can see the dog in the picture looking pretty excited about the whole thing. I would be if I was a dog, like fish everywhere. The ice was so thick it could be walked on, but it made for like a really weird fish frozen path. It was thought that the fish had been frozen for a week or more, and this isn't the only time this kind of thing has happened either. In 2017, a hiker came across a wall of frozen fish in a lake in South Dakota. They look like they're mid-swim. To me, this is such a haunting image. I'd freak out if I saw it in real life. A scary thing found frozen in ice cream up next at number 7. We have a catheter. Ugh. I love ice cream, but this really puts a spanner or a catheter in the works. How honestly grim. Imagine tucking into your lovely bowl of chocolate double caramel and pralines when you come across something hard and unwelcome. Then imagine finding out it's a catheter, a medical device used to drain urine from your bladder. Ugh. In 2017, a family from the Three Rivers area of Quebec found a catheter in their container of Cook ice cream. Luckily, they were not on the receiving end of any infections. They sought medical advice and they were okay. The ice cream company and provincial authorities were working together to discover how the instrument made its way to the gourmet ice cream tub. Alright, speaking of ice cream, we have the ice cream killer and her victims at number 6. Estibaliz Caranaza murdered 2 men and hid them in a freezer below an ice cream shop, earning her the nickname the Ice Cream Killer. She owned a popular ice cream parlor in Vienna where she committed her crimes. She killed her husband and then her next lover with a gun, and then she chopped up their bodies with a chainsaw. Why? Because they didn't impregnate her. She then stored their body parts in ice cream tubs and hid them in industrial freezers next to the real ice cream tub she used to serve her customers with. However, when her basement was renovated, the parts were found frozen in storage. Honestly, what a grim discovery. Think you're sneaking in some Neapolitan ice cream and actually get like a hand? No. Coming into number 5, we have Skeleton Lake. The mystery of Skeleton Lake has yet to be resolved. Up in the Himalayas in northern India, there is a lake that is frozen for most of the year round, but in the summer months it starts to thaw. The lake got its name when a ranger was in the area and noticed piles of bones protruding from the melting ice. On further investigation, there were hundreds of bones. A team came to investigate the bodies and discovered over 300 of them. They all died due to blunt force trauma to the head and dated back to 850 AD. It's possible that they might have been sacrificed in some way. Coming into number 4, we have Otzi the Iceman. In September 1991, 2 German tourists were hiking in the Ötztal Alps near the Austrian and Italian border. As they were walking on a glacier, they found a body partially sticking out of the ice. Helmut and Erika Simon thought the body was of a more recently deceased hiker, but when authorities came to extract the body, they discovered it was actually 5,300 years old. It's definitely scary to find a corpse, but how fascinating that they found one of the oldest known bodies to date. Incredibly, scientists were able to discover that he was around 45 years old and had died from an arrow to the shoulder, leading him to bleed to death. They were also able to determine it was spring when he died. They'd eaten chamois and deer meat with herb bread and fruits just 2 hours before his death. Something else unearthed with Otzi, something silent and unseen but seemingly very deadly. At number 3, we have Otzi's curse. It seems that after Otzi was pulled from the ice, 7 people closely associated with his discovery and retrieval died untimely deaths. Helmut Simon, who discovered the body, went missing 13 years after the mummy's discovery in the very same mountain range. After 8 days, his body was found. He had actually fallen 300 feet to his death. One of the team members who found Simon's body also died just hours after his funeral. Now the list goes on. In 1992, Rainier Hen, who placed Otzi's remains in a body bag, died in a car crash on the way to giving a speech about the Iceman. In 1993, Kurt Fritz, who helped transport the remains, died in an avalanche. Rainer Holtz, a man who made a film about the Iceman, died shortly after making it from a brain tumor. Tom Loy, a researcher who worked on Otzi's clothing, died of a blood disease, and Conrad Spindler, a leading expert on the Iceman, died after joking about the curse. He said, "I think it's a load of rubbish, it's all media hype. The next thing you'll be saying is, I'll be next." And he was. Coming in at number 2, we have zombie diseases. Coughs and sneezes spread diseases, that's what my nana used to say. I think we'll all start saying diseases under ice will no longer play nice. Why? Well, as global warming melts previously impenetrable ice, ancient viruses that have laid dormant thousands and thousands of years with no modern cures are being unearthed. In 2016, a 12-year-old boy died and thousands of reindeers were culled after being exposed to thawed anthrax. Honestly, locals were baffled, they had no idea where it came from, but then they realised it was the melting permafrost exposing them to nasties. Now this can happen across the world and scientists are calling them zombie diseases because, you know, they're back from the dead. While anthrax was an issue, it wasn't the worst thing to come about as we know what it is and we know how to treat it. But scientists are more worried about the Pandora's box of disease still to come as the ice continues to melt. This makes my heart so sad. At number 1, we have the victims of Rainbow Valley. This is actually really awful, so brace yourself. Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world. Since Edmund Hillary became the first human to summit in 1953, 4,000 people have followed, but a lot of people simply don't make it back down. It is thought that 300 people have died trying to summit the mountain. Because of the treacherous conditions, it's often too risky to rescue their bodies and most have simply been left where they are. Some have even become landmarks like Green Boots. He was originally Teswang Paljor, an Indian climber who died in 1996. The ascent to the top of Everest is often called Rainbow Valley or Rainbow Ridge. It's in the death zone. Now it's given that name because of the visible brightly coloured clothing of the dead. How awful. They're just there, laying frozen in the ice like probably forever.
Number 10, World War I soldiers. It was called a world war for a reason, as there seemed to be not a single patch of land that was untouched by blood and loss. They fought in the mud, the waters, and of course, the snow, resulting in fallen men being claimed by icy graves. 2 Austrian soldiers were found in the village that saw the battle known as the White War. A part of World War I was fought on the Italian front in the Alpine region of Italy. The 2 soldiers were found after a glacier melted in a ski resort in Peo. Unbeknownst to the people seeking a fun vacation and an après-ski was the bloody history of men who never made it home. Number 9, lion cubs. Your thoughts may have jumped to picturing the odd image of African lions somehow playing in the snow, but not quite. Close, but not quite. This little cub was actually a cave lion cub found frozen in the northeastern region of Yakutia, Russia. What's even more sad is you can even see it resting its little head on its paws, only about 1 year old. But this isn't the first time this region has yielded a similar discovery. Prior to this cub, 2 more were found 2 years prior called Unya and Dina and were the first cave lions to ever be found. Both sets of remains date back to the Ice Age, or at least 12,000 years old. This species of cave lion went extinct over 10,000 years ago, and researchers believe that these cubs died due to neglect. Either their mother passed away, or they were trapped and left behind. But the most exciting thing about the most recent remains is that it could be used for cloning, or it could be used to help complete the genome, which is really exciting. Whether or not we'll actually clone them is still on the back burner. Who knows? Number 8, Green Boots. Besides the mountain itself, Green Boots is one of the most famous and morbid discoveries on Mount Everest. The treacherous trek has claimed over 200 bodies of people who tried to say they'd accomplished the legendary feat of climbing Mount Everest, but none are as famous or as foreboding as Green Boots. His name was Sewang Paljor, but most know him as Green Boots. For nearly 20 years, he has laid on his side, wrapped in a red fleece, covered in ice and snow, with his green boots clearly in view. His legs stretch out across the path and many travelers have to awkwardly step over it to continue up the mountain. He was just 28 when he died, along with 2 other climbing partners. Little is known beyond that, but he almost serves as a guardian for fellow adventurers to take care and stay safe while climbing to the top of the world. Number 7, live alligators. right? By the end of this list, you may get the idea that if you were trapped in the ice, there's no chance that you'd come back from that. Unless you're an alligator. In fact, they have the very odd tendency of, well, see for yourself. Check out this video clip. Imagine seeing an alligator snout just poking out through the ice. Well, now you know better than to assume that they are dead. There's a reason alligators have survived for so long. While semi-frozen, they undergo a process called brumation, where they basically shut down their metabolism and slow down their heart rate, and then just like wait for the cold to go away. Imagine if we could do that with winter. Oh man, a lot of my life would be wasted. What about skiing and skating? They can't do that though, so I get it. That's a kind of patience I guess I will never understand. Number 6, the icy elevator. Moving away from mountains and ice caps, this next one was a grim discovery made in Detroit in an elevator shaft of all places. In 2009, a dead body was found frozen in ice at the bottom of an elevator shaft. Right? They had to use saws to extricate his body. The man's name was Johnny Redding, and whether he was pushed or fell down the shaft is yet unknown. But the coroner's report states that he died of a drug overdose, but that still doesn't explain how he ended up there. He was discovered when a few kids were playing ice hockey nearby and at first ignored it, but then they saw that it wasn't just his shoes, but an entire body stuck between 2 to 3 feet of water. Very terrifying to discover. Number 5. Hidden treasure. I don't know whether it's because of Pirates of the Caribbean or because of the Curse of Oak Island, because I love that show. I love watching that with my dad. But I know I'm not the only one who's dreamed of just finding treasure in their backyard or, well, scuba diving somewhere. In January 1966, Air India Flight 101 crashed in the summit of Mont Blanc, the highest mountain in France. 117 people died and many recovery attempts were abandoned, and it took 50 years for a massive secret to be revealed. The wreckage sadly was pulverized when it hit the mountain, but stuck within several layers of ice was the treasure of a lifetime. A small case packed with $246,000 worth of emeralds, rubies, and sapphires. The climber who found them, stand-up guy. He was an honest man and tried to find the owners, so they were kept in a vault until the right owner could be found. Not only did this ice reveal a treasure trove of gems, but also a damn gem of a human being, because who on earth wouldn't have just kept them? He is the guy that would run up behind you if you dropped your $5 or left your laptop behind. Man, the world needs more people like him. Let us know if you would have kept them or done what he did in the comments. What kind of person are you? Let us know. Number 4, the woolly rhino. We've heard of the woolly mammoth, but a woolly rhino? Maybe you've heard about that before on our channel, but hey, let's talk about Sasha. Affectionately named Sasha, this baby woolly rhino may be the key to discovering its placement in the mammal family tree. Sasha roamed the earth 10,000 years ago and is the only complete specimen ever found of the species. It roamed the cold, dry mammoth steppe region from Spain to Siberia, and there it perished until a hunter and a businessman discovered her. Sasha was donated to the Yakutian Academy of Sciences in Russia and carries the weight of completing the genome on her shoulders. If they do complete it, it could mean that they may be able to bring them back, but kind of as the same thing as the lion cubs. Should we not? Let us know what you think in the comments. And coming up to our top 3, please let us know if you like this video by pressing that lovely little thumb button and subscribe, as well as press that little bell so you get a notification every single time a new video comes up. We post so many a day and it's a challenge to keep up, so let us know. Number 3, Otzi the Iceman. Otzi the Iceman is perhaps one of the most famous icy discoveries ever made, partly because he has aided in developing our knowledge of life in the Copper Age, and the other half because people think he is cursed. Kinda like Tutankhamun. After thousands of years alone, a couple of hikers at last discovered him in 1991 by accident. He still had his clothing and his equipment while he slept in the Valsenal Valley Glacier. The last time Otzi was alive was over 5,300 years ago, which means he is older than the pyramids and Stonehenge, though he might have lived longer if he hadn't have been murdered, which could be the reason as to why many believe he is cursed. Several people have passed away mysteriously and under suspicious circumstances. Whoever were in direct contact with the corpse and the bodies keep stacking, so who knows. Number 2, disease. I know, viruses are probably the last thing you want to hear about right now. I know it is for me, but I couldn't ignore this. It was too cool and it had to be on this list. Though there are a lot of things no longer living trapped beneath the ice, except for alligators just chilling there are other more dangerous things that simply wait. I'm not talking about massive monsters or mythical creatures, something much smaller and far more insidious. Scientists are currently concerned that some of the world's most deadly viruses might resurface, but it's not really a case of might, it's a when will they resurface? In August 2016, the nightmare became reality. A boy died and 20 other people were hospitalized because they were infected with anthrax, a disease that revived due to melting permafrost. That's just one example. There are tons more that could be released, including the bubonic plague and smallpox. Plus, with antibiotic resistance, who knows if we will be able to survive them this time. And last but not least, this one is so fascinating to me and very controversial, the Inca Maiden. One of the best preserved mummies ever found, and not by any special kind of embalming process, but because of how they were frozen. It was just because of the natural environment that they were preserved so well. Her body, along with 2 younger ones, were discovered looking as if they'd only been dead like 2 weeks, not for 500 years. When John Reinhardt, a US archaeologist and expedition member, said, and I quote, "A chill went down my spine the first time I saw her hands because they looked like those of a person who is alive," unquote. The expeditioners had to battle 3 days of blizzards to reach the 22,000 foot summit and dig through 5 feet of rocks and soil. One of the guys had to be lowered down by his ankles to lift out the mummies. Their goal was to get to an Incan burial platform, and that's where they found them. You can even see the lice frozen to her scalp and the hairs on her arms. There was even still blood preserved in her veins and her heart. When she defrosted, it actually poured out of her veins, like it was still there. Researchers believe they were sent up to the mountain to be sacrificed in order for them to be closer to the gods. A huge honor of the time, not something we necessarily do now. But even crazier still, they were able to find a man from a small village at the foot of Mount Ampato who is her living descendant. Insane.